Okay, let's try this again. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if it's me, if it's Facebook, if it's just the whole technology thing, whatever it is, it drives me crazy. So I'm going to start over again. I am Janet Clark. Hi, Susan. So I'm here today to do our live training. And so our training is all about creating your freedom plan for 2019. And so it's very timely because we're just about to leave 2018. We're into the last month of the year, and we're opening up to all new possibilities for what we can accomplish in 2019. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to teach you what I've learned about making something happen that you truly want to happen, right? How to set a plan that is going to definitely shift you into a life of freedom. And it really entails some things that you might not have considered. So for those of you who are tuning in here or seeing this on replay, I just want to introduce myself if you don't know me. I am Janet Clark, and I am the founder of the business called The Freedom Shift, also known as the Sales Matchmaker, because what I do is I help coaches who have high ticket programs get matched up with people who are experts in selling those high ticket programs. So if you're here and you are a salesperson, you will definitely want to pay attention to what I'm going to be talking about today. And obviously, if you are a coach or a consultant and you're putting together your strategic plan for 2019, you'll want to pay close attention to this planning process. So what I'm going to do today, and I have notes because what I'm going to be walking you through today is something that is actually a pretty intensive workshop that I'm actually going to be doing at the end of December. So I'll tell you at the end how you can actually participate in that. But what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be teaching you the principles that we're going to be working on in that workshop. Because if you know the principles, whether you attend the workshop or not, you can do it on your own. Of course, it's always great to do it with other people and to get some guidance when you're putting together a plan. But you're going to get the framework today of how I do my planning for the new year and how it's really worked for me. So I think that's the most important thing is what I'm teaching you is something that I have used, and it has helped me to create this life of freedom. And I've been doing this now for quite a few years. And so it's a proven methodology. Let's put it that way. So part of the way that you're really going to achieve what you want and create the life of freedom is by being really clear with your vision. And so part of the planning process is obviously to get really clear about the vision and what you're looking to accomplish. So what we're going to be talking about is 4 areas where you want to concentrate, figuring out what those 4 areas, what you want to achieve in each of those areas. Because when we talk about freedom and putting together a freedom plan, we're really talking about a life that includes financial freedom, time freedom, and lifestyle freedom, meaning working from wherever you want, when you want, and doing work that you love, right? So these are the things that are like really important. And it's not just work, it's all the other things that we're going to be talking about. So let's kind of jump into this. There's 4 key areas that we want to look at. Now, I'm going to make a recommendation for this particular training that you don't just listen to me, but that you also turn off your distractions. This is going to be only 30 minutes, so I'm going to like go through it really fast, but I'm going to give you a ton of like really important things to consider. So you should write these things down. And you should also be taking some notes as to what's popping in your head as I'm going through this, because it's going to be important that what you think about these things, because this isn't a plan that is generic. This is specifically a plan created just for you. So let's jump into it. And yes, feel free to make notes, and you can ask me questions later if you need to. Okay, so, it's not enough, like when you're planning your life, obviously, to do just the business aspect of the planning. So when you're creating this life of freedom, what I say is that your business is what fuels the other goals that you have in your life. So we're going to be looking at these 4 areas, and the 4 areas are your relationships, your wealth, and finances. And I'm not talking about the money you generate, but I'm talking about your nest egg, your personal, and your then the business being the engine that fuels it. Okay, so what the real secret to creating this life of freedom is to know your priorities. So a lot of people make the mistake of putting together a business plan, and they focus completely on the business, but they forget that they have other priorities in their life. So they don't actually succeed in implementing what they planned on for their business, because they put the business as the only thing they planned for. They didn't plan for all the other things. And so then what happens is life gets in the way. And because life gets in the way, you don't achieve your business goals. So what we're going to talk about today is how to put life first, and then get your business to fuel what you want in your life. Does that make sense? All right. Well, it's kind of fun. It's maybe a little bit different from what you thought. But one of the things that I have decided quite a while ago is that there was never going to be an either or in my life. Like, I wasn't going to just be a mom. I was also going to have a business, right? I'm not going to just be a wife and a partner in a relationship. I'm also going to be a CEO of a company, right? I'm not only going to be a mom, a grandmother, and a wife and a CEO, but in my case, I'm also going to have a spiritual life. So there isn't an either or. Like, I want them all. They're all very important to me. And if I have to sacrifice something, then I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be fulfilled. There's none of those things that I'm willing to give up or to sacrifice. And health, is obviously in there too. And we're going to talk about all of these things. So when we're talking about relationships, so you can kind of make a note about that. Relationships have to do with your spouse or your significant other, and whoever else is in your family that's important to you, and also friends, right? People who you really want to make sure that you keep in your life, and that no relationship is going to be thriving if you don't focus on it. So we really want to put relationships as a priority for ourselves, right? Because when our relationships fall apart, it influences other things in our life too. So as human beings, we really are built to be in relationship with other human beings. So it would only stand to reason that we would prioritize that. Okay, when we talk about the area of finance and wealth, that's number 2. I'm not talking about the money that you're generating. I'm talking about the money that you already have and the assets that you already have. So what a lot of people do is they make the mistake of focusing on generating new revenue, new cash flow, new income, but they forget that they should be focusing on how to get the money they do have to actually work for them. Because that money, if you focus on it and do some of the right things with your assets, and it's not just money, but other things that you own, they can actually be producing more wealth for you. So a lot of people, they ignore that. I used to work with Laura Langmeyer, and she calls it sitting on your lazy assets, right? That's not a smart thing to do. So focusing on how you're going to get your assets to produce something more wealth for you is part of the plan or the planning. Okay, the next thing is going to be your personal goals. And when I talk about personal, I'm talking about body, mind, and spirit, right? What's deep inside you. And so we are here as human beings. And so in order to maximize and get the most joy and have a life of freedom, we have to be free from pain, free from sickness, and free from anxiety and depression and worry and all of those kind of things. So paying attention to your personal well-being and focusing on that and setting goals for that is just as important as finances, money, and relationships, right? Because without good health and well-being, you're not going to be able to enjoy any of those other things. So that's why that area is really important. And then the fourth one is the business, right? Now, a lot of people would say, oh, I thought business was going to be number one. Well, it's the reason why it comes last is for what I mentioned earlier. Your business is going to fuel this lifestyle that you are trying to create. So if your focus is only on business and you're making all kinds of money and you're working yourself to the bone and you feel like crap and you don't have time for your family and you don't get to enjoy peace of mind and relaxation, then what good is the money? Right? I mean, what good is the business? So those things all have to come together. So let's talk about this mistake that so many people make, right? Where they look at it from the perspective of the big picture. Okay, this is what I want in my life. But they don't really drill down to, well, what does it really take for me to get that? And so in order to get what you want in those 4 areas of your life, there's 3 components that have to be considered in each one of those areas. And the 3 components are, how much time is it going to take to get what you want in each of those areas? How much money is it going to take to get what you want in each one of those areas? And how much of a team do you need to accomplish what you want? And I'm going to explain this because as we go through this, I'm going to actually share with you a little bit of how I had put together my plan for 2018, and I'll also share with you the results of how it turned out. So obviously, unless you put it on paper and you actually have it detailed, you're not going to be able to go back and measure it. And so it's really important that it's in writing. And so I actually have been having some fun going back looking at what I created for my plan for 2018 and to see how it all has come to fruition. And, part of getting something to happen and making it come to fruition is to know where you're going, right? So you have the goal clearly defined, and then you have some sort of a roadmap of how you're going to get there. So what we're going to be doing when we apply these 3 components, and again, the 3 components are how much time, how much money, and how much of a team are you going to need. And this is going to really help you to determine um, what needs to happen, right, in order to get where you want to go. So we're going to go through this little exercise, and I'm going to be, like I said, sharing with you some of how I did it last year. And again, I just want to reiterate that we are going to have a very intense workshop on this that I'm going to be hosting in December 27th. And if you want to be a part of that, if you like what you're hearing here and you know that it would be really smart to carve out some time to really dig deep in this, contact me, because I'm going to let you know how you can get involved in that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some questions now. So you can take your notepad out, and as I go through these questions, I'm going to ask you to consider write down what your responses are to each of the things that I talk about. So in each area, we're going to be talking about time, we're going to be talking about money, and we're going to be talking about, do you need a team to accomplish these things? So the reason why time is the number one thing in each one of these areas is because we have to start out, and there's only a finite amount of time. Money is unlimited, team is unlimited, but time is not. So that's the most important thing that you have to recognize when you're putting your plan together, is that you have to be realistic about how much time you actually are going to spend to get what you want. For, it's going to cost you some time to get what you want, right? Or it's going to be part of what you do, right? And so when you do something, you're using time. So let's say, for the purposes of this exercise, so we know there's 365 days of the year, but I like to kind of round it out to 350. And because, we're going to lose some days, just God knows why, right? Because we're just sick or something happens, right? We get a cold, or, a hurricane hits, or God knows. But we're just going to lose a few days. So let's say that there's 350 days. And then let's say that we know that we need one day a week that we're not going to schedule anything. Like, we're not, even family stuff, relationship stuff, whatever. So we're going to take 50 days off of our total days available. And so that gives us some leeway, because we know, like life, there is no way to plan every day out for a year, right? It's just not going to happen. So what I want you to start with, for intents and purposes of this exercise, is I've got 300 days to plan how I'm going to, what I need to do with those 300 days. That's finite, and time and money, money and team, or not. Okay, let's start with relationships. So you want to take a minute now and really think about, what is it that you want to do with your family, your loved ones, your significant other next year? Like, what's the big thing that you really, really want to do? For some of you, it might be, I'm going to get married. If you're getting married, or you're having some kind of a big event, maybe you're having a child getting married, right? There's a lot of days involved in planning for that. There's a lot of days involved if you're going on a trip. So be realistic. What are the big things that you want to happen with you and your relationships over the course of 2019? So let me share with you what I came up with last year, and maybe that will help you a little bit to think about it. So, for a lot of I have 4 sons who are all married, and I have 10 grandchildren. So right now there's 20 of us. But last year there was 19, because there's a new baby. Little Lucas James, he's only 2 months old. He's adorable. I just got to spend some time with him. It was awesome. Okay, so now you're looking at your relationships and you're saying, what do I want? Well, what I came up with last year was, I wanted to take all 19 of us, 19 and a half, on a cruise. And I really wanted it to be a week-long cruise, and I didn't want any of them to have to spend any money. I wanted it to be, they got their flights, they got their cruise, they got all the excursion, everything to do with the cruise was completely paid for. And it was going to be an experience that's near and dear to my heart because I have grandchildren in both Massachusetts and Florida, and they're all little and cute, and I love to get them together, and I love to see my sons together. I have twins. One of the twins, I mean, they're identical twins. They always were really close, but now one lives in Florida, one lives in Massachusetts. So I love it when they're all together. So that was a huge priority for me for last year. So I had the cruise, plus I live in Florida. Most of my family is up in Massachusetts. So I knew that I wanted to have multiple trips back to Massachusetts. So I usually try to go back every 6 weeks or so. And I don't go necessarily for huge amounts of time, but when I go up there, I don't get that much work done. So I kind of have to carve out time to just be with the kids when I go up there. So I knew that was my priority. Which was really going to serve my husband and was really going to serve, everybody that was really important. I spend time with my mom, but she lives in Florida. And then I got to see my siblings when I'm back up in Massachusetts. So that all kind of tied in with my trips to Massachusetts and my visits and the cruise. Okay, so the first thing I had to see was how much time is this travel to be with my family and cruising and time off and vacations going to take? And so I really came up with, I want 12 weeks. I want 12 weeks of the 52 to be devoted to vacations and having fun with my family. Because you know what? I didn't spend all these years raising a family and devoting myself to working hard so that I can't enjoy them at this stage, particularly the grandchildren who we know grow up fast. So that was important to me. So I came up with, I need 12 weeks for that, which I multiplied times 6 days, because remember we said we pulled 1 day off a week. So it was 72 days that I came up with. So now when you look at the time aspect of what we're doing, take your 300 that we started with, subtract the number of days that you're going to spend with your family. Now you're not going to get this whole thing done right now. Like I said, this takes a lot of time and thinking, but this is giving you the framework. Okay, so now I was down to somewhere around 228 days left. And then I had to look at the money. How much money is it going to cost me to do what I want to do here? And to be honest with you, I undershot that. So what I had come up with was that I needed $20,000 for the cruise, and then I needed $10,000 for the other vacations. Well, I can tell you right now, the cruise was $30,000, probably a little more. And then we rented another home, did a couple of beach weeks. I did a lot of traveling back and forth. I probably blew that 10,000 also. But I knew that I was at least going to need 30,000. I probably really ended up going overboard by 10,000 or so, but whatever. Going into my year, I knew I need 30,000 for this, and that's earmarked for my family travel. Okay, cool. You guys got that? All right, so hopefully you've got something in your mind and you could spend more time on this later. So let's talk about finances and wealth. So when I looked at, the big picture, I've been around a long time, as you can probably tell, and so I do have some assets. And so one of the things I realized that I needed to do last year was I needed to work with a CFO. So I have this business and I have personal situations, 401ks and all that stuff from my days in corporate. And I really wanted somebody to give me the big picture of my finances and to figure out what's the best way for me to set myself up so that I'm going to be okay, whether I work or don't work, right? So I can get my assets working for me. And part of that was looking at some insurance products and looking at some long-term care and whatever needed to be done. So, in my case, I knew what my priorities were for the finances. And so I knew I also wanted to diversify some of my investments. And so what I would have need to do that was I would need, besides the CFO, I would need to have some sort of legal advice on setting up some trusts and that sort of thing. If I needed them, I didn't know, right? So what would that look like for me? Well, what it looked like was really that I was going to have to spend some time